present it, and you make sure the person is ready to appreciate it. This readiness might come after healing, after learning, or after going through experiences that prepare them to fully understand what you are sharing. Sometimes, the right season to reveal a truth comes unexpectedly. You may be in the middle of an unrelated conversation, and something in the other person's tone or body language tells you that now is the time. In that moment, you can speak, not with hesitation, but with confidence, because you know you have waited for the ground to be ready. And when it is received with understanding, you see the power of having waited. The wrong timing can turn even the most beautiful truth into a source of conflict or pain. The right timing can turn even a difficult truth into a moment of connection, growth, or healing. This is why wisdom values both truth and timing equally. It understands that rushing can damage, but patience can prepare. It sees truth not as something to be used to relieve your own burden, but as something entrusted to you for the good of others, to be delivered when it will produce the greatest good. When you choose to wait, you are choosing to let truth fulfill its purpose at its highest potential. You are protecting both the message and the heart of the one who will receive it. We're saying without words that they matter enough to you to ensure that what you share is not only true but timely. When that season comes, the truth will not only be heard, it will be understood, valued, and remembered. Love often leaves gifts we didn't know were being prepared, because real love works quietly, without announcing itself and without keeping score. It thinks ahead, plans ahead, and sometimes plants seeds that will not be seen until much later. These gifts are not always material, though they can be. Often they are intangible, lessons, values, opportunities, or acts of provision that are hidden until the right moment. Person with no expectation of recognition or repayment, it is willing to work in the background, to make sacrifices that are invisible at the time, knowing that the day will come when those investments will bear fruit. Sometimes, when we finally discover these gifts, they take us by surprise, because we had no idea the person had been thinking so far ahead on our behalf. The nature of love is to give, but giving is not always immediate. Love understands that some gifts have the greatest impact when they are revealed after a season of waiting. This might be because the recipient is not ready to use or appreciate them yet, or because the giver knows the timing of the gift will magnify its meaning. In these cases, love works quietly, building, saving, preparing something that will one day meet a need the other person doesn't even know they will have. This foresight is one of the deepest expressions of care, because it requires the giver to think beyond the present moment and anticipate the future. Sometimes the gift is something tangible, a home, money saved, an heirloom preserved, or a possession set aside. At other times, it is less obvious but no less powerful. The way a person has shaped your thinking through their words, the way they've influenced your character through their example, or the way they've protected you from hardships you didn't even know were threatening you. There are parents who have quietly endured personal sacrifice to ensure their children have better opportunities. Spouses who have made decisions that safeguarded the family's future without drawing attention to themselves. And friends who have spoken truths in moments when we didn't realize how much we needed them. What makes these gifts so moving is that they are often discovered in the absence of the giver. Sometimes, it is only after a person is gone that we begin to uncover the ways they loved us. We find letters, notes, saved keepsakes, or carefully planned arrangements that speak louder than anything they could have said in life. These discoveries can bring a complex mix of emotions: gratitude for their love, sorrow for their absence, and awe at the depths of their thoughtfulness. It reminds us that love is not measured solely by what we see in the moment, but by the quiet, unseen work that continues behind the scenes. When you realize someone has been preparing something for you without your knowledge, it reshapes the way you see them. You begin to understand the depth of their commitment, the patience of their care, and the intentionality of their actions. You see that they weren't just living for themselves. They were thinking of you, even when you weren't in the room. This realization deepens your respect and affection, because you see that their love was not driven by emotion alone, but by deliberate choice. The beauty of love's hidden gifts is that they often outlast the moment in which they are discovered. A carefully preserved home becomes a place where future generations can gather. A lesson instilled in childhood becomes a guiding principle for a lifetime. A single act of provision in a time of crisis can alter the course of someone's future. The giver might never witness the full impact of their gift, but the ripple effects can be felt for years to come. Love's preparation often requires sacrifice, and that sacrifice is rarely visible to the one being loved. The person preparing the gift might have had to say no to their own desires, work extra hours, endure discomfort, or delay their own gratification to make it possible. They do it quietly, without seeking praise, because their motivation is rooted in genuine care. When the gift is finally revealed, we are often humbled by the realization that someone thought of us in such a selfless way. It is also important to recognize that not every gift prepared by love is meant to be grand or life-altering. Sometimes the most profound gifts are simple and personal, a recipe passed down with handwritten notes, a photo album curated over years, a garden planted with flowers you love, or a song recorded because it reminded them of you. These smaller acts often hold the most emotional weight because they are so personal, reflecting not just love in general but love specifically for you. There is a humility in this kind of giving. Love does not need to be acknowledged at the time of its sacrifice. It can wait quietly, trusting that one day the meaning will be understood. This patience is part of what makes these gifts so powerful. The giver is not seeking immediate validation, but is instead focused on the lasting good of the receiver. And when the time comes for the gift to be unveiled, its impact is magnified by the realization that it was born out of such enduring commitment. The lesson in all this is that we should not underestimate the possibility that someone in our lives is already preparing something for us, even if we have no idea. It could be a parent, a spouse, a friend, or even someone we consider a mentor. They may be thinking ahead on our behalf in ways we cannot yet see. At the same time, it challenges us to consider whether we, too, are leaving behind gifts of love for those who will come after us. Preparing something for another person without their knowledge is one of the purest expressions of love, because it is not about recognition, it is about legacy. When you finally encounter one of these hidden gifts, there is often a sense of reverence that comes over you. You feel as though you've stepped into a moment that transcends time, connecting you not just to the present, but to the thought and care that went into the gift long before you received it. It makes you grateful not only for the gift itself, but for the person who gave it and for the kind of love that works quietly, patiently, and without self-interest, to prepare something meaningful for another person's future. Timing can turn information into wisdom because facts alone do not change lives. It is the moment in which those facts are revealed and the condition of the heart receiving them that determines their true impact. A truth told too soon can feel irrelevant or even disruptive, while that same truth told at the right moment can feel like revelation. Timing is not about delaying for the sake of delay. It is about aligning the delivery of information with the readiness of the listener. There is a vast difference between knowing something and knowing it when you are prepared to apply it. Wisdom understands that the greatest lessons are not only about what you learn, but when you learn them. Every person's life is shaped by seasons, and each season carries its own lessons, challenges, and opportunities. Information given in the wrong season can fall on unprepared ground. For example, advice about financial discipline means little to someone who has not yet faced the consequences of careless spending. But the same advice given when they are searching for a way out of debt can become a lifeline. Timing transforms the same set of words into a turning point because it meets a genuine need at the moment it is most deeply felt. This is why great teachers, mentors, and leaders often seem to know when to speak and when to remain silent. They recognize that their responsibility is not simply to share what they know, but to discern when it will have the greatest effect. A seed planted in the wrong season will struggle, but planted at the right time, it will flourish. This is just as true for the planting of ideas and truths in the human mind. The heart and mind have to be prepared for certain truths, and that preparation often comes through experience. There is also a humility in waiting for the right time to share something important. Requires you to resist the impulse to show what you know and instead focus on the person you are speaking to. You must consider their emotional state, their level of understanding, their openness to hearing something that might challenge them. Timing is an act of empathy, placing the needs of the other person above your desire to speak immediately. It is the recognition that what is most important is not that the information is heard, but that it is understood and applied. Timing also changes the meaning of information because it interacts with the events unfolding in a person's life. A word of encouragement means far more when it comes during a season of doubt. A warning feels more urgent when danger is close. A reminder of love carries more weight when someone feels alone. The same sentence can either be forgotten or remembered for a lifetime depending on when it is spoken. This is why timing can be the difference between wisdom that builds and information that is wasted. Waiting for the right moment does not mean you are avoiding the truth. It means you are stewarding it well. You are ensuring that it lands in a way that inspires action rather than resistance. People often resist information that feels untimely because it clashes with where they are mentally or emotionally. They may see it as irrelevant, intrusive, or even insulting. But when they are ready, they may embrace the exact same truth with gratitude, because their perspective has shifted to recognize its value. The discipline of timing also protects relationships. Sharing something before the other person is ready. To hear it can cause tension, even if your intentions are good. It can make them defensive or lead them to misinterpret your motives. But waiting until they are open allows the conversation to build trust rather than erode it. This is especially important in moments where the truth is difficult or confronting. A hard truth delivered in the wrong moment can create unnecessary conflict. But in the right moment, it can become a catalyst for growth and change. In personal growth, timing plays an equally important role. There are moments when we are more open to learning than others, moments when we are searching, questioning, or hurting enough to be receptive. In those times, even a small piece of advice can have a transformative effect. It's the same words, spoken when we are closed off or distracted, might not penetrate at all. This is why so many people look back and realize that certain lessons from their past only made sense years later, when life had prepared them to see clearly. Sometimes waiting for the right timing also allows you to deliver the truth with greater clarity. Time gives you the chance to refine your words, to think through how best to express them, and to anticipate how they might be received. It can also give you additional insight into the situation, allowing you to frame the information in a way that connects more deeply with the listener. In this way, patience not only benefits the one receiving the truth, but also sharpens the one delivering it. There is also a strategic aspect to timing. Certain circumstances, revealing information too early can diminish its effectiveness. A surprise meant to encourage can lose its emotional impact if revealed without the element of timing. A plan meant to inspire can fall flat if shared before others see the need for it. Timing gives weight to the moment, creating an environment where the information feels significant and worth remembering. The principle that timing turns information into wisdom also applies to decisions we make for ourselves. Acting on certain knowledge too early can lead to failure, while acting on it at the right time can lead to success. Wisdom is not just knowing what to do, but discerning when to do it. In this way, timing is a form of maturity. It is the ability to delay action until the conditions are favorable. Even when the urge to move forward is strong, learning to value timing requires patience, observation, and self-control. It means resisting the pressure to speak simply because you can, or to act simply because you know something. It means watching for the signs that someone is ready, the openness in their questions, the shift in their body language, the way they start seeking what they once ignored. It means trusting that the right moment will come and that when it does, the truth will land in a way that transforms rather than disrupts. When information is delivered in its right season, it ceases to be mere data and becomes something far greater. It becomes a guiding principle, a turning point, or a foundation to build upon. It carries the power to shape choices, influence behavior, and change the trajectory of a life. This is why timing must be treated as an essential part of wisdom, because the when can be just as important as the what. When we speak about inheritance, most people think of money, property, or possessions. But the truth is, the most profound inheritance we receive is often invisible to the eye and cannot be measured in currency. In the quiet spaces of life, after the noise of a funeral has faded and the condolences have stopped arriving, what lingers is not just the material that was left behind, but the unseen legacy. A person's values, their sacrifices, their faith, and their way of thinking are the intangible treasures that shape the lives of those who remain. This is why the weight of an inheritance is not merely in what it is worth, but in the meaning it carries. A watch passed down from a father is not just an accessory, it is a reminder of his discipline, punctuality, and work ethic. Written by a mother is not merely a collection of ingredients, it is a reflection of her love, patience, and care for her family's well-being. When my wife passed away, she left more than just assets. She left an imprint on my life, my decisions, and the way I saw the world. That was the real inheritance. Her ability to see beyond the present moment, to prepare for tomorrow without letting fear dictate her choices, was something she had cultivated over years. It was her nature to plan, to care, and to protect even beyond her own lifetime. The house she left behind was not simply a structure of bricks and walls, it was a message, a testimony to her foresight and love. But beyond the keys and the deed, the greater value was in what it symbolized. Material inheritance can be spent, lost, or wasted, but the emotional and spiritual inheritance has the power to guide decisions, shape character, and outlast generations. This is why some people who inherit wealth lose it quickly, while others multiply it. The difference is not in the amount received, but in the internal tools they have to steward it. A person who receives an inheritance without the wisdom to manage, it is like someone given a ship without the knowledge to sail it, will eventually drift or sink. My wife understood this. She knew that while a house could provide shelter, the real shelter comes from the mindset that knows how to protect, maintain, and use what is given for the right purposes. As I stood in that second house after her passing, I could almost hear her voice reminding me that this was not just for me to enjoy, but for me to manage with care. It was not a gift for immediate consumption, it was a trust for the future. I realized that part of her inheritance to me was patience, the understanding that timing is as important as possession. That's why I did not rush to tell my son. It wasn't because I doubted his worthiness, but because I wanted him to inherit more than the property. I wanted him to inherit the wisdom of waiting, the discipline of responsibility, and the understanding that blessings often come wrapped in seasons. Every gift carries with it a purpose, and that purpose is often tied to timing. The value of what is given increases when the receiver is ready to appreciate and protect it. My wife had prepared the physical inheritance, but it was my role to prepare the emotional and mental inheritance for my son. By holding back the knowledge of the second house, I was giving him space to grow into the kind of man who could handle it. I was, in a sense, extending the gift my wife had started, because her legacy was not about giving him something, it was about making sure he became someone. An inheritance that is purely material fades with time, but one that is infused with meaning becomes a compass. It guides decisions long after the original giver is gone. That second house was a physical representation of my wife's care, but the deeper inheritance was her faith that we could be trusted to carry forward her values. It was her way of telling us that love thinks ahead, that real wealth is found in preparation, and that what we pass on should always be more than objects. The greater inheritance is the life principles, the habits, the vision, and the belief that we can face the future with strength. There are moments in life when silence becomes a shield, not out of fear or secrecy, but out of wisdom. Silence is often misunderstood. People think it means avoidance, withholding, or even deception. But in truth, silence can be one of the most powerful acts of love and protection. Not every truth is meant to be revealed immediately, because timing determines how that truth will be received and whether it will be a blessing or a burden. When my wife passed away, The grief in our home was heavy. My son was navigating his own storm of emotions. I knew that adding more information, especially about something as significant as another house, could create more pressure than peace. In that moment, silence was my way of guarding him. Silence, when used with intention, can serve as a bridge between what is and what will be. It gives space for emotions to settle, for perspectives to mature, and for priorities to align. It's like planting a seed in the ground. You don't immediately dig it up to check on it. Allow time for unseen growth to happen. The second house my wife left was not going anywhere. It wasn't a perishable gift that would vanish if not claimed. But my son's readiness to understand its significance needed time. I recognized that this was not just about giving him something. It was about preparing him to handle it without letting it distract or derail him from his current path. I have seen too many families torn apart by premature revelations. A sudden inheritance can stir up greed, entitlement, and even resentment. Among relatives, the moment money or property enters the conversation, relationships can change overnight. Smiles can become guarded, and trust can fracture. My wife and I had often talked about this reality. Both agreed that there is a right season to reveal certain blessings so that they are received in the spirit they were intended, rather than with the weight of expectation or the chaos of unpreparedness. Silence in matters of inheritance is not about greed or selfishness. It is about stewardship. Stewardship is not only about taking care of possessions, but also about taking care of people. My responsibility was not just to protect the house, but to protect the bond between my son and me. If I had told him too soon, the news could have changed our conversations, our priorities, and even our trust in each other. By keeping quiet, I was preserving the purity of our relationship in a season where grief needed to be the focus. It's not material gain. Silence also has the power to test our motives. In the absence of information, people reveal their character. If my son could continue to live responsibly, work diligently, and make wise choices without knowing about the extra inheritance, then I could be sure that when he eventually received it, he would not take it for granted. The delay in disclosure was a silent assessment of his maturity. It was not a test I told him about, but one that life itself was conducting. The world often pressures us to share everything immediately, as if transparency without timing is the highest virtue. But wisdom understands that not every truth is ready for release. A farmer doesn't harvest his crops before they are ripe. A parent doesn't hand car keys to a child who has not yet learned to drive. Similarly, a wise steward doesn't hand over an inheritance until the receiver has developed the strength, vision, and discipline to manage it well. There is also the emotional dimension. My wife's death left a wound that needed time to heal. Adding the complexity of another property could have shifted the focus from honoring her memory to managing logistics. Sometimes silence is the way to let the heart catch up with reality. By keeping the second house a quiet matter, I was allowing space for grief to breathe, for memories to remain sacred, and for life to regain a sense of normalcy before introducing new responsibilities. Silence and stewardship requires trust, not just trust in the person who will eventually receive, but trust in the process. I had to believe that the right moment would come, and that when it did, it would be clear to both of us. I had to trust that my son's growth, his choices, and his maturity would align with that moment. That kind of trust takes patience, and patience is often the price of wisdom. The day will come when the silence will be broken.